Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time around, we're checking out a mod by the name of Serious Sam, the Retro Encounter, and just by that title alone, I'm sure a fair few of you out there will know exactly how this one is intended to play. For the rest of you who have been living under a rock for what must be all of eternity, Serious Sam is a series putting you in the shoes of Serious Sam, badass at large, combating the forces of mental. Yes, that's the name of the villain. Don't question it. But if you've ever heard this noise, you've got Serious Sam to thank for it. Truth is, I feel like I'm going to have a bit of a difficult time talking about this mod at any sort of length because at its core, Serious Sam is actually a tremendously simple and straightforward series, and to its credit, the Retro Encounter here replicates that experience extremely well. For the uninitiated, the core gameplay experience of Serious Sam will largely involve you wandering around places of historical importance. In this case, and the case of the first Serious Sam game, you'll be wandering around ancient Egypt, all the while running into the seemingly endless hordes of Mental's minions. You may be wondering why all of these creatures are wandering around ancient Egypt in the first place, or why my character is even in ancient Egypt. Well, the short answer to that is time machine and ancient alien conflict. Seriously, you really shouldn't put much thought into it. It's a means to an end, damn it. As for the level design itself, much like its source inspiration, you're not really going to be getting lost anytime soon. The structure here largely involves you fighting enemies either on the way to or in arenas, and that's the way it likes it. It keeps it simple and focuses on what it really wants to be about, and that's giving you a significant chunk of enemies and significantly chunky weapons in order to dispatch them with. Besides that, the only other things that the Retro Encounter is really going to ask you to focus on are things of the pro-tip variety, such as keeping an eye on your ammo reserves, staying in motion so you don't get hit, and most important of all, not dying. Pretty much part of the course, really. As you can imagine, keeping things interesting with these levels is a tricky endeavor, which is why I'm grateful that the change of atmosphere between the first and second level is so significant. So we go from the brightly lit outdoor midday sun environs of ancient Egypt to the spooky tomb, and you do get a lot of pretty in-your-face spooky ambushes, and you also get a nice degree of trap evasion to deal with here. Something that I didn't really think too hard about the first time, which accounts for me just blundering straight onto these spikes. Go me. This level also has a nice sideline in generating claustrophobia using impressive effects such as the heavy fog here to restrict your view distance and make the area feel a lot more enclosed than it actually is. It certainly raises tension when having to deal with enemies such as this cyber demon variant here, when in truth you've actually got plenty of room to maneuver and deal with it. Just goes to show how effective presentation like this can transform a relatively simple layout into something a lot more interesting to fight your way through. After that relatively brief interlude underground, you'll once again find yourself topside for a final encounter on this level, involving, you guessed it, a shed-load of enemies and a big wide open arena. Thankfully, at this point, the Retro Encounter chooses to add a few more interesting weapons into the mix, such as the minigun here, and of course staples such as the rocket launcher. I'm pretty sure there were various other weapons stashed away in secrets in the preceding levels, but unfortunately my eyes just weren't keen enough to spot them. All in all, though, I did find this arena a little too gentle, all things considered. I was expecting a greater and more hectic mix of enemies to have to deal with, such as a few enemies to harass me around the arena, while the mancubuses peppered me from the walls, but everything seemed to appear in a very orderly fashion, one at a time, making it much easier than I anticipated to just focus on them and get rid of them. Maybe it was just a consequence of me playing this on normal difficulty instead of something a little higher up. The following level, however, suffers from no such problem. Within a relatively short space of time, you are flat out accosted by hordes of headless suicide bombers and tasked with fending off large crowds of cyber demon variants, naturally prompting you to crack out the heavier artillery, such as the grenade launchers, the rocket launchers, and of course, fan favorite, the Serious Cannon. If you're not acquainted with the Serious Cannon, it's a cannon that launches giant exploding cannonballs. It's pretty fun. But it is this level where it feels like the retro encounter is finally ramped up to full speed. It's not really playing around anymore. It's starting to be a lot more harsh with how it inflicts the hordes on you, and it feels like much more the classic Serious Sam experience I remember. 2 steps forward, 5 steps back while going, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, because the suicide bomber's running at you. On the more subtle side, I've quite enjoyed the day-to-night transition that you experience across the 3 levels in Egypt here. The first one obviously taking place during the bright of day, second one has you emerging from the tomb into dusk, a hint of the stars in the sky, and then the third one around the pyramid here, obviously at night. But I was just impressed how the transition didn't feel harsh and gives each level an opportunity to look a little different despite them all being set in the same themed environment. All in all, on the visual front, I'd say this is a damn fine looking mod. It's uncluttered and clean with the visuals, helping facilitate the gameplay quite nicely, and the theming is absolutely on point, to such a degree where I wouldn't imagine you'd have much trouble trying to convince someone vaguely gullible that this may have in fact been a prototype version of Serious Sam that Crow Team worked on before they got down to business proper. So what boss awaits you at the end of the pyramid level? Well, it's none other than Anubis, who functions like a slightly more mobile icon of sin. He'll chuck projectiles, which, once they hit the floor, will spawn an enemy that you're probably going to have to deal with. But it's actually pretty simple. It's not as massively taxing as you may imagine if you keep on top of the enemies that he spawns. He's actually really easy to whittle down and ultimately kill. I think this is in part thanks to the fact that there is plentiful ammo scattered around the tomb here, and once you start firing with the minigun, provided you know where everything is, you really don't ever have to stop. And with that, Anubis falls, and the pack is complete. That's right, it is actually that short. There's not a massive amount of single-player levels available here. In fact, the intro level unceremoniously kicks you out to a screen that says, couldn't find the second map, sorry about that, but the Egypt expansion pack here does actually provide a nice chunk of entertaining levels to play through. Beyond that, there's always survival mode. It's a shame, really. I was really hoping for more levels than there actually were, and a quick little search around didn't really glean any information on level packs that other people may have produced in the meantime, but there's always hope. I would like to play more of this, if possible. I would like to see what other people make of it, if they feel like dedicating a little time to making a few maps and encounters of their own. And outside of single player, there is always the provision for multiplayer. Granted, it's entirely dependent on you being able to find yourself an active server, but hey, there's nothing stopping you from spinning up a server of your own with the aid of something like Zandronum, a source port which, coincidentally, I must recommend if you're thinking of giving this a go in any capacity. In my experience, it didn't really play very nice with the likes of GZ Doom, but in either case, if you're interested, the link, as usual, is in the description below. While I'm at it, I'd like to give a great big thank you to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so very much for supporting the channel and for helping to make content like this possible. If you're interested in joining this esteemed list, maybe even gaining access to new editions of my videos before everyone else, in which case you'll find all the information you'll need over on my Patreon page, the link for which can be found also in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mods you'd like to see me cover in future episodes of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.